than previous ones, because it's things just aren't what they have been a couple of years ago. So it's hard to find joy when you're just trying to keep your head above the water, right? 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll come right back.
The Eagles want to emphasize how high they can fly with maximum points against the Citizens.
There's the header and there's the equaliser, and he has done it on the third attempt. This could be a big, big moment in the season of Crystal Palace.
However, the defending champions are navigating an ideal path back to the summit.
Grealish, and the shot is blocked, and the rebound goes in! City 2, Arsenal 2, right to the end!
This is the Premier League. Experience the spectacular action between Crystal Palace and Manchester City. This Saturday, 7 December at 5 p.m. Live on SABC 3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
So as we get a sense as to how South Africa's middle class is feeling going into the holidays, we thought we'd catch up with Brand Maps Director of Storytelling, Brandon de Kock. As South Africans enter the holiday season, the middle class are finding themselves grappling with a mix of financial stress and cautious optimism. But here's the twist. So despite facing rising costs, debt concerns, economic uncertainty, Brandon says that many of you are not as pessimistic as I make you out to be. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm all good, thanks, Bridget. Thanks for having me.
It's only but a pleasure. So you say that, South Africans in general are really not as pessimistic as the media suggests.
Well, I don't know about in general, Bridget. I think that's I think we need to be a little careful about the story that we sort of try to bring to the marketplace.
Yeah.
I just think that there's a tendency for us to look at the half empty glass, because let's face it, there are an enormous number of South Africans who are, it's almost impossible for them to have a financially happy end of year. So we still have 15 million people on social grants. And there's still a lot of people unemployed, and there's a lot of the bottom half of the market is certainly under like an absurd amount of pressure. But I guess what we always try to bring to the party is that if you look at the taxpayer base of South Africa, the tax-paying households, so that's now people living in households earning more than 10,000 Rand a month. There's a slightly different story to be told about that kind of continuum. So as you get higher and higher up that household income ladder, you get a group of people who are just a lot more resilient than we often read about. And those are the people that we are really interested in, because it's somewhere around, there's probably between 3.5 and 5 million people living in households earning more like 30,000 Rand or more. So it's not a massive amount given the whole population, but it's a sizable group of people. And certainly if you're a retailer, they're the ones who are going to be coming in and dropping some proper cash in your store over the festive season. And those are the people we're talking about, because we think, and our data seems to prove, that they're actually, they've done okay. If anything, what this year has done is it's just made them a bit more cautious. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have money or that they're borrowing themselves into a lifestyle. And I think that's all. We're just saying that there should be some air of optimism about the fact that the people who pay the personal tax in South Africa, they're doing okay. In fact, some of them have had an incredibly good year.
Listen, I want to be optimistic. I want to be optimistic, and I want to see the glass as being half full versus half empty. And then I think I err on the caution of, in conversation with a lot of my listeners who represent quite a wide demographic of South Africans. And when we talk to those who, the personal income taxpayers, the likes of myself and my circle of friends, and even given those who are doing financially better this year than they've done in the last year or two, it almost seems the burden of cost of living, though, has almost risen to match that sort of that positivity. You know what I mean? So it's not as though there's a lot of middle room where they can go, shoo, I can let my hair down because my cost of living remained the same as it was in 2021, but my income has risen 30-40%.
Yeah, so I think maybe where we need to be cautious about this is there's a difference between sort of elation, panic, despair, and just worry, right? So the kind of sentiments that we try to get out of people is like, are you like in a state of despair, or are you just worried? Okay. Mm-hmm. And I think what if you, and this is a good conversation to have with your mates, you know, like say to people, are you really in trouble here? You know what I mean? Are your debts way overweighing anything? Are you drowning in debt, or are you actually just worried? Mm-hmm. And I think what happened this year is that thanks to elections, thanks to water cuts earlier in the year, and, you know, there was a lot of worry, especially in the first 6 months of 2024. But all you need is a couple of things to kind of go right, you know. So I think if you, and then those worries start slowly dissipating. You know, we've all forgotten about load shedding already. Yeah. So it's completely crazy. But no one's talking about load shedding anymore. It doesn't come up around the dinner table, you know. And I think that things can move quite quickly in a positive direction. So if you look at the last half of this year, which is leading us into the holiday season, it looks like our government of national unity may actually do something positive. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think, and I know that there are always going to be naysayers, but I think that in a year when politics was top of mind and how it affects our finances, I think it's been a much more positive outcome than any of us sort of could have imagined. Certainly from an international perspective and a confidence of international economies, it's been a wonderful thing. Then we've got the repo rate being cut for the first time in 4 years. You know, that's a pretty radical change that will filter down to the consumer. As I say, we've had no load shedding. We seem the water situation seems to be kind of under. So there are all of these different little things, and here's what I think it means for the people higher up the income ladder, the privileged employed of South Africa. It means that instead of maybe just keeping my money in the bank in case because I'm worried, that maybe we'll kind of go, sure, it's okay to start spending again. You know, that I know it's a subtlety I'm talking about, but you know what I mean. That it's like, I'll tell you a really cool place to go looking for some fun answers. I measure the passenger car sales in South Africa. It's a metric I've always been a bit obsessed with, and it follows this sort of incredibly regular pattern, month on month and year on year. And they've had a terrible year this year. It's been like below everything. Because of consumer confidence with elections and all the rest. And do you know that in the last 2 months, October and November, have been the two best months that I can find in 80 years for the number of passenger cars sold in South Africa?
Oh, wow.
And there are a couple of reasons. I mean, I think that the two-pot system, I'm sure you've had some people on talking about the two-pot and what it means. But if you are fortunate enough to have been able to have a retirement fund and tap into it, jeepers, the end of year is going to be looking great. Eh? You know what I mean? It's going to be like, woohoo, Christmas presents all around. So I look at something like passenger car sales and I go, yeah, there's other factors involved, but the fact that we've had this terrible year and we're hitting the end of it and we're knocking the numbers out of sight, it just tells me that there's maybe a lot of pent up worry that's dissipating. That's kind of that's the story I got in my head.
Okay, listen, I'm going to take your optimism, and I know that I literally made you sort of jump into the middle of this conversation without us even, working our way up to it. So I'm going to backpedal for those who are listening to us. We are talking to Brandon Dikoko, who's a Brand Maps Director of Storytelling, and he's unpacking for us how is South Africa's middle class feeling going into the holidays. So maybe let's backpedal and go back to the beginning and get the sentiment of from the survey and the research that you guys have now taken. What was sort of the general top tier sentiment around South Africans at this time?
So generally, people are incredibly positive. Even beginning the year, I think it's another key thing to remember about again, we talk so much about unemployment and about the struggle, but then there are 13 million South Africans living in these sort of tax-paying households. And first of all, geez, I think they're happy just to have a job, to have an income, and be able to pay for electricity. But so it's almost like cheap. And we'd feel. I think I might feel very negatively about people who didn't feel happy in general. So in general, this group of people they're okay. I mean, they've got worries, as I said.
Yeah.
They've certainly worried. We measure almost half of these people saying that they're worried about rising food and energy costs. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not on the radar. But the big things that worry us about people in the economy, things like debt. Debt is such a massive issue.
Yeah.
And we read a lot about how people are borrowing themselves into lifestyles that they just can't afford, and there's a lot of debt stress. Even in this group of people, of the 13 million that I'm talking about, we only measure about 30% of them being debt stressed, as in so when I say only, because again, here's my glass half full, half empty thing again. 30% is actually quite a lot to be debt stressed. But then I would go, it's 13 million people. That means 70% of them aren't debt stressed. Do you know what I mean? So we just got to be careful that we look at like which side of the seesaw's up and which side's down.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. I mean, and again, it's something to talk about around the table. The psychology, the sort of amateur psychologist in me is always fascinated with this idea of how the things that we worried about become sort of realities in our mind, as opposed to them being actual realities. And I'm not saying that it's not a reality for a lot of people that they are in debt, that they are debt stressed. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. But when 70% of people say, yeah, I'm okay, I'm just a little worried. Yeah, that's a very different picture, So all we need is a few more guns to go off. That's a terrible, what you know what I mean. Cannons to roar would be a better thing. If a few more things go right over the next couple of weeks and then months. I do believe that our tax-paying base and the economy in general seems to be at a pretty strong, it's in a strong position for a brighter future, let's put it that way.
I love that. Let's pause here quickly. We'll take the headline news in just a few moments. But before we get to that, our lines are open on 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. We'd love to gauge from you as to how you're feeling heading into the festive season. What is your sentiment right now as we wrap up the year? 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on if you'd like to share your opinion live with myself and Brandon. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get into the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side.
Get ready to win big this holiday season with SAFM. Text Christmas to 41391 to stand a chance to win one of 12 amazing mystery prizes. SMS lines open on the 29th of November and close on the 24th of December 2024. Winners will be announced between the 26th and the 31st of December. Each SMS costs R1.50, so hurry up and send your entries now. Terms and conditions apply. Get into the festive spirit and win big with SAFM this Christmas. Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Good afternoon, House Bridget, and good afternoon to your guest. House Bridget, with respect to your guest, I don't know which part of the country he's from, but it is tough out here, House Bridget. It is tough. I'm a truck driver, I can tell you. The money that you are getting is not enough. Look at the bill of ESCOM. Look at the water bill. Look at the transport. You're actually working so that you can go to work. The money that you're going to get, you're going to use it for transport to go to work. It is tough. Imagine the person who's getting 350 hours, Bridget. What are you going to do with 350? You can't pay the bill of ESCOM. You cannot buy water. You cannot pay your bills. It's like people are working for the banks. That's what is happening. So now Christmas is just going to be a dull Christmas for everyone else.
It is very tough indeed. It is very tough indeed, Freddie, for a lot of people. And even given everything, the optimism that Brandon is sharing with us this afternoon, I kind of feel like you a little bit, Freddie, that I'm just like, okay. I mean, I'm going to take it if this is what South Africans say, but I wonder if this is their lived reality for real when they're not talking to Brandon. Brandon, let's talk a little bit also and understand the age dynamics that I play here, because you say that the age dynamics play a significant role, right? Gen Z and baby boomers, for instance, in this survey and conversation stood out for you guys as the least debt stressed. I can almost get that though, because when you're a boomer, I'm presuming that you're already done with all like the debts of life. Ideally, I would hope that you are able to, at this point, be enjoying your retirement and your golden years.
So age and wealth, even if it's relative, kind of auto-correlate. So I think when you're young, you're not really earning enough to incur that much debt, and when you're old, you've hopefully paid most of it off. It's the guys in the middle who are raising families and trying to get by. They're the ones who need the debt and the ones who are most likely to be stressed. I was that was very, your caller I totally understand the sentiment, and I did start off by saying that I'm talking about a sector of society. I don't for one moment think that the vast majority of South Africans are not living that reality. They are living what he's talking about. They're working super hard and finding it almost impossible to make ends meet. Here's and this is not an optimistic sort of view of it. It's more just let's call it a philosophical or even a logical view. Yeah. Is that in order to pull the economy up, in order to make those millions and millions of South Africans who are really struggling just to put food on the table, in order for them to have a chance of leading a better life, I think we need to know and hope and feel that there's a sizable group of people who are pulling the economy forward in a different way. You know what I mean? That we can all pull each other up, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Brendan,
and I guess that's my half full story. I'm not for a moment suggesting that everything's sort of hunky-dory and rosy out there.
No, absolutely. Can I pause you there for a second? We seem to have a technical crossfire on our end, and they forgot to go into the headlines. So we'll go into headlines. Onde Lambana, my deepest, sincerest apologies for that. We're going to get into the headline news, and then we'll come back and continue with Brandon.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, members of the All African Alliance movement have successfully challenged their expulsion from the Umkhonto weSizwe party in the Western Cape High Court. The corruption case against former National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula has been postponed until the 20th of next month, and the Director of Public Prosecutions in Gauteng, Advocate Sibongile Mzinyathi, says he's pleased with the progress made in the Senzo Meyiwa case. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Apologies again there to Onde Lambana with that late cue into the headline news. As we continue our conversation with Brandon de Kock, getting some more information. So, okay, Brandon, I know I had to just quickly rush into the headline news there, but let's continue the train of thought around sort of the 45% of Gen Zs and baby boomers who have no debt at all. How are they getting this right? What's the difference with this particular cohort versus any other?
So that it's an anecdotal or an assumptive opinion that I'd be able to offer on that. It's simply about stage of life, right? I mean, when you're young and when you're old, I think it's a lot easier to simplify life. You'd either don't have children or they've left home and are hopefully supporting you. So those are the two kind of ends of the slinky spring in a way. They're the people who have their choices are either all in front of them or all behind them. Whereas it's the guys in the middle. It's that sort of 35 to 55-year-old. That's probably your key stressful time of life.
Yeah.
Maybe a little younger than 35 even. I think we have a youthifying society. So obviously there's a lot of younger people who are getting into the market earlier and getting into the family earlier, and so basically it just comes with it's your journey through life, right? The moment you have children, the moment you start thinking about something like a property, that's when things get a bit hairy. You start having to satisfy repayments, and you probably need some insurance of some sort, and so that's why sort of debt would obviously seem to collect or gravitate more towards midlife or middle life.
That makes sense.
And I think there's also, here's an interesting thing to throw out to your listeners. I don't have a lot of evidence about this. We've done some sort of bespoke research around it, but I also do think that there's a lot of changing attitude on the part of young people about how and where and what the best way is to approach all these things, right? So if you go back 20 years ago, owning a house and owning a car and paying them off was probably seen as almost like the epitome of the middle class, of like getting somewhere. But I've got this sort of strange feeling that a younger generation don't see the world the same way. I think the idea of buying and paying off a house and paying the bank twice what the house is worth over 20 years maybe isn't that appealing. And maybe we are seeing sort of a difference in consumer behavior where people are doing things like taking Uber rather than paying off a car, for example. And maybe a lot of that also fits into that sort of shifting trends when it comes to debt and spending, and how these young people can live their lives is very different to what it was 10 years ago even.
Yeah, I think I can roll with you on that one, because you can kind of pick up the chatter that they have on social media, especially around property ownership. And you kind of sense that a good number of them are thinking along the lines of what you're saying right here. So what is keeping us awake at night then? What is keeping SA's mid to top earners awake?
So the things that have kept us awake remain very much the same. Our primary concerns have always been crime, corruption, government incompetence, leadership issues. That they leadership issues will always, and especially, I don't know what could happen to knock crime off the top of that worry list. I think the majority of South Africans, whether you live in the poorest place in the country or the richest suburb, I do think that crime is top of mind. The government factors are still the things that keep us very much keep us awake at night. But we have definitely seen this idea of rising costs becoming increasingly important for people. As I say, that's the worry mentality. And apart from that, I think we've got to be realistic about being South Africans. We have a lot of things on our minds the whole time. Yeah. Top of them is, what on earth is the government doing to make sure that the potential for the future is better? So that still applies. The one thing I think we're probably worrying about a lot less is, like power cuts. Yeah. I'm still worried about how we've achieved that, but we'll just bank it and move on till Christmas, shall we?
Listen, we'll take the wins wherever we can. Brandon de Kock, thank you so much for the time and the conversation. He's the Director of Storytelling at Brand Map, walking us through how we are feeling going into the holidays. And it sounds like, listen, we've got a cautiously optimistic outlook, which is a good thing. Let's actually go to John in Davidton as we wrap up on this conversation. How are you, John?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, the Christmas is going to be hard for most people. I know it's hard, it's tough. Yeah. I come from Mpumalanga, next to the Kruger National Park. Normally during this time, there's day visit. You just book. It's very cheap. I'm going to take some of my neighbors here at Dexton. And my family that side, we are going to slaughter a cattle and just have Christmas and drive to the Kruger National Park, come back for 4 or 5 days. That's how I'm planning to just share with those who don't have during this time.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We need to share. Life is tough for others. They say what the eye cannot see, the heart cannot feel.
Absolutely.
I see things and my heart is aching for those who really, really, really don't have, and they're trying hard to live an honest life, but life is just so hard. Yeah.
It really is. But wonderful, wonderful, John. Blessings on you. Blessings on you and your family for sharing what you have with your community and your neighbors. I think it's a wonderful thing to see that spirit of Ubuntu. It's just gone 20 to 2 o'clock on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga on SAFM. Let's have a quick pause here, and then we'll come back on the other side and we'll catch up with the folks from the Tembisile Hani Family Street Market and find out more about what's happening this festive season.
Running your own building business, time is money, and Buco gets that. Early morning deliveries, you'll have everything you need to hit the ground running. Buco has extended trading hours so you can grab those last-minute essentials or save even more time and order online at buco.co.za. It's quick, easy, and convenient. Visit our new Buco store in Stratham Park, corner Frida and CR Swat Drive. For every step and every build, begin with Buco.
Africa Zonga's visitors, England, believe only victory will bring joy to the English. However, the Proteas are highly spirited to triumph. What a summer without cricket! This is the One Day International Series, where summer cricket comes alive. Catch the glittering women's second ODI clash between Africa and England on Sunday, 8 December at 9:40. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and Radio 2000. With reports on various SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Get ready to win big this holiday season with SAFM. Text Christmas to 41391 to stand a chance to win one of 12 amazing mystery prizes. SMS lines open on the 29th of November and close on the 24th of December 2024. Winners will be announced between the 26th and the 31st of December. Each SMS costs R1.50, so hurry up and send your entries now. Terms and conditions apply. Get into the festive spirit and win big with SAFM this Christmas. Bridget Masinga, weekdays on the Full Circle.
We are catching up now with Dumsani Mahlangu, who's the municipal manager of the Tembisile Hani local municipality, and they've got the Tembisile Hani Family Street Market, and it's a hub of socio-economic activity that's designed to empower local entrepreneurs. He's going to tell us exactly what is on the agenda for this festive season. How are you doing this afternoon, Dumsani?
I'm very fine, Bridget, and how are you?
I'm great, thank you so much. Okay, give us some background, around the Tembisile Hani Family Street Market. What inspired the conceptualization of this?
Thank you very much. I think in your brief opening remarks, by the way, let's greet the listeners of SAFM. In your brief introduction, you do indicate that is mainly socio-economic related program, and that's where it stems from, because we want to change the lives of our small, medium and micro enterprises which are operating within the municipality. Given that we're a municipality which is faced with a 62.2% unemployment rate, and there ought to be programs which are aligned to our Pillar number 5 initiative, which is part of socio-economic development, and what it is that we can do, or what platforms can we create for our SMMEs, for them to showcase their talent, while at the same time are able to generate some sort of income which they are able to take home and feed their families. Bridget, I think that's mainly the core behind the idea of hosting such family street markets.
When did the market sort of come into realization? Have you guys been doing it now as an annual initiative?
In actual fact, we commenced with our first one on the 27th of October. So it's just over a month ago, and the idea is to host a market in different special economic zones of the municipality bi-monthly, especially in our warmer months. So it means with what we have planned, the next market, which will be the third one, is planned for February in a different area. So on the 27th of October, we commence in Kamhlanga. So now we're coming to Mtombomuhle, which is formerly known as Kwaggafontein B, just opposite our municipality. And then we'll be moving to a different area, just for us to create these platforms for SMMEs to trade. Not just that, but also promoting social cohesion within the municipality. Hence, we refer to them as family street markets, because the whole idea is for people to come out in large numbers with their families and just to come and enjoy themselves within this environment which we've created.
Yeah. Talk to us about the community's engagement and involvement. Have they in some parts contributed to the planning and the execution of the event, and perhaps even lent their piece to what they'd like to highlight by way of the economic opportunities?
Yeah, so this is not the only program which we're implementing in supporting our SMMEs, our non-profit organizations, and our cooperatives. There is another program which we are, whereby we've got a total budget of 5 million, just so that we can support them with tools of trade. And all they need to do is just submit or respond to the call for proposals, so they can tell us what their businesses ought to do, and that's through the submission of business plans and compliance documents, but bringing it closer to home in terms of the market itself. Remember, the programs which we're implementing are programs which are outlined in our service delivery and budget implementation plan, abbreviated as your SDBIP. And this is mainly the contract which a municipality would sign with its constituency over a period of a year. And that would also find expression within the Integrated Development Plan, the IDP. And everything which we implement is something which we would have consulted our communities on. So public participation is one of our core attributes in terms of us governing properly as Tembisile.
Have you seen in the last, you mentioned that you had a market, 2 months ago. From that market, what was the sort of learning outcomes or the tangible opportunity that was created from some of the vendors that partook?
Yeah, I think that the most important one, and I think this is crucial, because we create a platform free of charge for SMMEs/vendors to come and be a part of the market. So what transpired was we were supposed to have a total of 40 odd SMMEs, and only half of those SMMEs pitched in the previous market. So that prompted us to ensure that we require them to commit through a payment of a 200 rands deposit, which is refundable. So that, remember, you can say you are attending this and that program, the next thing you are not doing so, and then by so doing, you are indirectly but directly affecting another person who would have utilized the opportunity that you have now set aside by not pitching for that event. So that was the core challenge which we noted, and the control we've put in place just to ensure that the SMMEs which have responded to our call for them to be a part of the market actually do form part of the market. And then others which are mainly operational ones. Of course, there is the matter of Mother Nature, which is rain. In as much as we are dying for rain, excuse the figure of speech. At the end of the day, if you have an event under the sun and if it were to rain in a stormy way, you would be disrupted. So we're hoping for clear skies, we're hoping for good weather. so we can just enjoy ourselves while we also just trade, ensure that our local economy continues to grow.
Yeah. By way of the sustainability element, Dumsani, let's just quickly touch on that as we wrap it up. I'm thinking, obviously, the municipality does have plans for this initiative and others that are sort of taglined around it to have sustainable traction, right? And talk to us about that long-term vision.
Yeah, no, we do have. So our plans are aligned to what our integrated development plan says, of course. And this is more at your small to medium scale intervention, which we are implementing for SMMEs. As indicated on a financial year, every financial year we are budgeting a total of 5 million rands. Of course, subject to us changing our own economic fortunes, changing our own financial position, would want to budget more, which is why continuously would call upon our residents, our communities, to ensure that they meet the municipality halfway by paying for the basic services, which we do deliver, because that in turn is money that we can always utilize to implement such programs which we do have. We must indicate also that there is other events, massive events, which are happening within our municipal shows. One of them is coming on the 1st of January. It's quite massive in that it attracts over 15,000 people. The all-white picnic.
Wonderful.
You'd have your cultural fair, which is going to come in March as well, and all of this contribute towards greater economic fortunes for us as the people of Tembisile, while the tourism industry is equally receiving its much needed boost. So those are just some of those which we are implementing.
Wonderful.
Just to ensure that socially, economically, we are better off in this municipality. Bridget, thank you.
Lovely. Dumsani, we have to wrap it up there for this afternoon. That was Dumsani Mahlangu, Municipal Manager of Tembisile Hani Local Municipality, talking to us about that initiative, the Family Street Market. It's just gone 10 to 2 o'clock. Let's pause here and we'll be right back.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
All corners of Mzansi Africa will vibrate with great energy. The Carling knockout winners Makesi FC battle it out with an all-star team selected by you.
This is the Carling Black Label Cup 2024, the Cup of Champions. Fagukesi. Catch the Champs Clash on Saturday, 21 December at 3:30 p.m. on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
For 30 years, we've stood together, advancing collective action to end violence against women and children. But the fight is far from over. Your voice matters. Every action counts. From educating our communities to supporting survivors, it's time to unite and create a future free from fear. Join SAFM for 16 days of activism. Together we can make a difference. Together we can end the violence. Because 30 years of progress means we cannot stop now. Let's advance the fight. Stand up, speak out, take action. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So we thought we'd catch up with the folks at Memeza Crime Prevention and quickly get an update on the pioneering community safety initiative that they are now expanding. And so we are catching up to the co-founder and CEO of Memeza, Elmarie Pereira. How are you doing, Elmarie?
Hi, Bridget. I'm well, thank you. And thank you so much for having us back.
Only but a pleasure. Just to clue in some of our listeners who might not be aware of the work that Mameza Crime Prevention does, give us a quick context.
Thanks so much, Bridget. So Mameza is all about giving vulnerable women and any vulnerable person something tangible in their hands that they can use to either prevent or react to violence or crime. And with that technology and tangible tools that we supply to communities, we also make sure that we look at the response networks in communities, either uplift them or empower them, whatever might be needed, but to make that stronger. So when you press that panic button, someone will come and someone will hear you.
You've had your program now in a few territories, Northwest Province, from what I understand. Give us some groundwork as to how that's been and how it sort of rolled out in that province and the kind of intervention that it's had in the fight against GBV.
So, Bridget, this specific program is a 5-year program that has been funded through the First Rand Empowerment Foundation, and Northwest is the fifth province that we are deploying into. We've been in Gauteng, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and KZN.
Yeah.
So the Northwest deployment will include community alarm systems that will be going to vulnerable households. It will include personal alarm systems that you can carry with you when you are walking at night or during the day, walking to school or wherever, so that you can make a noise if you're in trouble.
Yeah.
It will include a variety of mobile panic applications, and then it also includes us establishing a gender-based response network in the community of Ikageng, working very closely with the South African Police Services and Community Policing Forum members and local stakeholders to make sure that when the beneficiaries of this equipment actually uses it, there is a proper response to their need, and not only physical response, but also social workers and the kind of after effect response that you also need to deal with the impact of violence and gender-based violence.
Clue in our listeners a little bit about how the Safer City mobile panic apps actually work. Paint them a picture. Those who've been fortunate enough not to have had this kind of intervention.
So we've got 3 or 4 different technology interventions, Bridget. The first is our community alarm system. They all work on the same basis, but we're trying to make sure that if your cell phone is stolen, you still have a backup. If somebody's already in your house, you still have a way of panicking. So the first intervention we have is the community alarm system, which is South Africa's first community alarm system that was developed working with the South African Police Services and government. And that is a very simple to use panic button that you press, either a fire panic or a medical panic or a crime panic.
Yeah.
And SMSs are sent to your family, friends and neighbors, because they're always the first people that are closest to you. And then followed on by that, obviously, monitoring center contacts you, find out what's the problem, and depending on the situation, help gets sent to you. The other interventions that we have is our personal alarm system, which is literally just a device that makes a noise. You carry it on your handbag or around your belt or your neck, and if someone looks for trouble, you pull that pin and it makes a sound of 140 decibels. And then the third intervention is the mobile panic app that works exactly the same as the community alarm system, but now you can panic from your cell phone, and those messages are sent to the people and response networks that we have linked with you. And one of the additional things that we've built into our technology is the fact that you can get hold of a social worker 24/7 a day, so if at any time, even if it's not in the case of actual violence currently happening to you, but if you want to find out how to get out of a situation, what is the next steps I need to take, you can speak to somebody that can direct you in the right direction.
Marie, I've got like 30 seconds left, but you are now going into Ikageng in the Northwest Province. Why that territory?
We work based on the police statistics that tells us what are the top impact areas with regards to gender-based violence, rape, and so on. So there's always a top 30 hotspots, and Ikageng was one of those hotspots that was identified, and that's why we are, working with that community at this stage.
Yeah, love the intervention, and thank you so much for just coming back, doubling back, and letting us know about these expansions. Co-founder and CEO of Memeza Crime Prevention, Elmarie Pereira, right there. As you heard, they are in Gauteng, Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and now in the Northwest Province in Ikageng with those multi-layered crime prevention interventions, specifically targeting GBV victims. It's 2 o'clock. Ondela is standing by with the news.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 2. MK party loses another court case, and South Korea's former defense minister banned from leaving the country. For SAFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good day. Members of the All-African Alliance movement have successfully challenged their expulsion from the Umkhonto weSizwe party in the Western Cape High Court. The AAAM members alleged that MK party leader, former President Jacob Zuma, sidelined them. The court, in an order dated 4 December 2024, reviewed and set aside their expulsion and removal of their names on candidate lists. The clergy approached the High Court for it to review and set aside the decision by the National Assembly Speaker to refuse to swear them in as members of Parliament. Kenny Mapanga reports.
The disgruntled members of the clergy argued before the court that the All-African Alliance movement had a working agreement with the MK party. The said agreement was that the movement of the clergy and traditional leaders would suspend their activities and work under the banner of the MK, as well as share the spoils after the elections equally. The movement, however, alleges that this agreement was not realized and they were allegedly sidelined. Kenny Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The corruption case against former National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula has been postponed until the 20th of next month. This as Mapisa-Nqakula's defense counsel filed its heads of argument late, giving the state insufficient time to argue the matter. Mapisa-Nqakula's defense has requested for additional disclosure of Section B and C of her docket, which entails correspondence and the investigation diary. State prosecutor Advocate Beki Manyati says the state will need more time to go through the documents.
The applicant filed heads of argument on Monday, the 2nd of December. They consist of 133 pages, and a reference is made to 128 decided cases and 8 legal publications, coupled with the legal authorities referred to.
The Director of Public Prosecutions in Gauteng, Advocate Sibongile Mzinyati, says he is pleased with the progress made in the Senzo Meyiwa case. Mzinyati briefed the media on major high-profile cases the division is currently dealing with in various courts across Gauteng. He says while the Meyiwa trial has been dragging, the state will soon close its case.
I get briefed on this case, and I'm assured that it is nearing, at least insofar as the state evidence is concerned, it is nearing. The state case is going to close, going to rest the state case, and then we will hear what the defense and the accused are doing. So, the simple answer: I am happy with the pace of that case. It is taking too long, and it is a case that is broadcast live every day on TV. We know what the delays are and how they manifest themselves. We are anxious that this case should finish without any further delays.
5 initiates have died since the start of the summer initiation season in the Eastern Cape. 1 death was recorded in Stutterheim after an initiate was burnt beyond recognition after the hut he was sleeping in caught fire. 4 others died of dehydration in Dujwa, Flagstaff and Lusikisiki. To date, 18 people have been arrested for cases relating to running illegal initiation schools. Provincial COCTA spokesperson PLO Oliphant says this is concerning.
The MEC for COCTA in the Eastern Cape, Mr. Zolle Williams, together with the chairperson of the Eastern Cape House of Traditional and Khoisan Leadership, Nkosi Mpumalanga Gwadiso, urges people to comply with the rules of initiations. 1 death is but too much.
Prosecutors in South Korea have banned the former Defense Minister Kim Jong-un from leaving the country. Kim, who resigned yesterday, is facing an investigation into his role in the short-lived martial law imposed by President Yoon Yeol on Tuesday, as accused of ordering the deployment of troops to parliament. The BBC's Steve Lai has the details.
We haven't heard much from President Yoon at all. In fact, we haven't heard from him since he lifted that declaration for martial law just over a day ago. And we've also not expecting to hear from him as well. Local media have been reporting that the President's office have said that we're not expecting to hear from President Yoon at all today. The former National Defense Minister has resigned. His resignation has been accepted by President Yoon, and he's also been put on an emergency travel ban. He's accepted responsibility for the martial law declaration, and he's apologized for that.
Recapping the top story, members of the All African Alliance movement have successfully challenged their expulsion from the Mkondo Asizwa party in the Western Cape High Court. I am Wandilambana for SAFM News headlines at 2:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Your ultimate football show is on your screen on Sundays. This is Safa TV, where every episode is packed with non-stop local football fire. We're bringing you all the latest from our junior and senior national teams. From fresh updates to the inside scoop on Safa and the stars of SA football. Catch Safa TV on Sundays at 2:30 p.m. on SABC1. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? At Specsavers, get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Nomfundo More coming through, featuring Shashao in this one and Amifaku. Parate is the name of this particular song, taking us to 10 past 2 o'clock on the clock. It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, as the conversation continues to move. On the other side of 2, I did say that we're going to have a legal guide conversation where we look into food crimes and what exactly are food crimes and how are South African lawmakers and laws dealing with food crimes. We also are going to have a conversation around the true cost of Africa's counterfeit electrical goods trade. Choosing safety over savings pays off in the long run. So we'll find out together the context around that particular conversation. Is this a thing with everybody? Are we really not making smarter, wiser choices when it comes to the kinds of goods that we are purchasing for our households? Because sometimes purchasing cheap is not always the way to go. But our lines are still open. Because I did ask you earlier, how is your sentiment going into this festive season? We literally are wrapping up the first week of December, so we are fully in the festive season right now. And I'd love to gauge, your energy and your sense around December 2024. Is it something that you're positive about? Is it something you're optimistic about? Or is it something that is, weighing heavy on you right now because of the kind of year that we've had, or the financial constraints, and looking into 2025. Yes, there's glimmers of hope here and there, but things are just not changing as fast as you would like them to, or maybe they have, and you are wrapping up the year in a far better position than you've been in the last 3 years, and so you're feeling optimistic. I'd love to know from you. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. You can send through a WhatsApp voice note. Let's take a quick pause.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM. Get ready to win big this holiday season with SAFM. Text Christmas to 41391 to stand a chance to win one of 12 amazing mystery prizes. SMS lines open on the 29th of November and close on the 24th of December 2024. Winners will be announced between the 26th and the 31st of December. Each SMS costs R1.50, so hurry up and send your entries now. Terms and conditions apply. Get into the festive spirit and win big with SAFM this Christmas. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
We are catching up now with Dr. Modimo Mutlogo, who is a postdoctoral researcher for the Center for Labor Law in the Department of Mercantile Law at University of Free State. And in the recent months, South Africa has witnessed a troubling rise in the number of children that are falling ill and passing away from consuming unsafe snacks bought from spaza shops. This issue has highlighted the dangers posed by counterfeit and expired foods, right, which often contain harmful chemicals. And in a response, the government has put in place several regulations, including the South African Consumer Protection Act and Foodstuffs Regulation, to address these concerns. And so we thought we'd catch up with Dr. Modimo and find out a bit more about what these laws entail and perhaps some of the challenges and how we move forward in addressing this issue. How are you doing this afternoon?
Oh, hello, Bridget. I'm fine, thank you. Hope you're fine.
I'm great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the impact of fake and expired food on public health. How do these sort of counterfeits and expired goods contribute to a rising number of foodborne illnesses and deaths in the country?
Yeah, okay. It's a catch-22 situation. The reason I say this is that all this time we've been having a lot of fake foods being sold in these spaza shops, but we've never had like multiple deaths or multiple people getting food poisoning right across South Africa, in Gauteng, in KZN. But so really, one has to really think carefully before blaming the spaza shops owners or blaming the manufacturers. But like but we have to also consider that where are these spaza shops getting their products? You see, and to these spaza shops actually even keep records when they purchase, because as far as I know, me and you know that when you run a business, you keep records. You keep records of your expenditures, where you buy, I think how much you've used for this month, and so forth. So now it becomes very difficult to trace where the problem is coming from, because you might find that these spaza shops are buying their products from backyard industries, or let me just say underground factories, which is a problem. So it's just a whole complicated issue, which needs one to look at it very, very carefully. Yes.
Talk to us about, I just mentioned the fact that government has put in place several regulations, including the South African Consumer Protection Act and foodstuffs regulation, to address some of these issues. But you say that the enforcement of these laws remain a challenge.
Yes, absolutely. So you find that we've got the Consumer Protection Act, we've got this Foodstuffs Act. Okay, I'll unpack it later. Then you've got your municipal bylaws, because I think ever since the issue of expired goods, the selling of expired goods started several years back, the government actually compelled all municipalities to have a spaza shop bylaw. For example, here in Free State, we've got the Mama Home municipal bylaw, which actually compels spaza shops to register their business, but it does not say much about health inspectors coming or when they can come, if they can do prompt unannounced visits and so forth. Then you've got your Foodstuffs Act and the National Health Act, which actually compel businesses to allow health inspectors to come and inspect. But the thing is, we don't have enough inspectors to do regular inspections. I mean, we've got 155,000 spaza shops scattered all over South Africa, especially in the townships and in the rural villages. But you might find that those spaza shops have never even had a single inspector coming to inspect if they are selling food which is not expired, or operating in conditions which are hygienic, and and other things that may which affect the safety of the public buying those goods. So it's an issue of the fact that there isn't enough resources put to ensure that we implement these particular laws. Yes.
So, by way of the existing laws and regulations, obviously, as you say, there's inefficient capacity and resource for it, right?
Yes.
So then how do we begin to redress that? Because putting in more laws and more regulation, it doesn't necessarily curb the crises that we are finding, if we are not also addressing the lack of resource to implement and enforce those particular laws and regulations.
Yes, that's a very good question. So you look right now, I strongly believe that with the necessary political will, you won't be having like such incidences, because you look at SADC, I mean, you look at countries which are actually not economically as powerful as South Africa. I mean, your neighboring states like Mozambique, Zimbabwe, what's this, Zambia. You don't hear of such incidences of people dying from poisoning or people buying expired goods. So I think it's an issue of political will at the same time from the government to take this issue more seriously than they are taking it right now. Because right now it appears that the current gen has no concern about the safety of people with these laws in place. So it's an issue of to say whenever the minister of the minister of finance or announces the budget, he says that in light of all these serious issues on consumer safety, we've got this budget to ensure that we've got a number of appointed health inspectors in the municipalities at provincial level and so forth. So I think it's an issue of political will from the government, yes.
Talk to us about where perhaps there is a lack in the current legislation and regulation, what they speak to and maybe what they need to be speaking to in order to be bolstered up and be more efficient.
Yes. Okay. So to add on to the political, so you look at the current legislation, which is the main one that deals with food, is the Food, Cosmetics, and the Disinfectants Act. And this act is actually from 1972. So if my mathematics is right, this act is actually 52 years old, and it's not in touch with the actual reality of the danger posed by not only spaza shops but also wholesalers in this whole situation. Because I would have liked that this legislation to be separate, to say it just speaks about foodstuffs. It's not meshed with the cosmetics and disinfectants. And then if you also look carefully at this legislation, at that time in 1972, the legislator or the minister and his team who drafted this legislation, they say that if you're a first-time offender, you'll be fined an amount of 400 rands or 6 months imprisonment. Or if you're a second-time offender, you'll be fined 800 rands. And if you are a repeated offender, you'll be fined 2,000 rands. But honestly speaking, I mean, 400 rands is what people are getting from that social grant, or 800 rands is just so little to be a deterrent measure. So let's say, for example, they catch an underground factory or a bogus factory manufacturing fake foodstuffs. So that person will think that the following day he'll appear in court, and then maybe if he puts an admission of guilt, probably maybe 6 to 8 months later, the magistrate will actually fine him $400, and then that person is back busy manufacturing some fake or some products which are harmful. So in other words, the current legislation itself is also a bit outdated. Then again, if you look at just a second, if you look at the regulations on food labeling, they give a wide margin of discretion on the manufacturer to decide when this product can expire. So you might find that maybe the manufacturer is probably doing some guesswork to say that maybe she's selling biscuits. He'll put an expiry date of maybe in 3 years' time. Yet maybe in actual reality, those biscuits can only be edible for 2 years. So we need actually the government to be the one putting regulations to say if it's biscuits or if it's liquid drinks, if it's chocolates, the expiry date should be this one. Not we should not give manufacturers discretion to say they can think of any expiry date that they can put on any food product as well. So it's also an issue of the regulations not being in touch with the reality. Thank you.
You also say in your piece that most spaza shops obtain their goods from wholesalers who are off the hook from prosecution. Talk to us about this, because you say that And I take this point. I understand this point. You highlight the fact that the media appears to only show the one side of the problem, and that's the side of the spaza shops, but not the wholesalers. And indeed, the conversation has been by and large pretty one-sided, and has sort of the responsibility has laid on the footsteps of the spaza shops without looking at the complete value chain of production and manufacturing.
Yes, absolutely. That's a good point, good question you've raised there. So I think the danger of media sometimes that they are sending a very sensitive or false narrative to say that spaza shop owners are the ones selling expired food, and then this actually perpetuates more hatred, because right now a lot of spaza shops, the owners are like treated with suspicion by certain people in communities, to say that these are the ones who are actually behind killing our children. And then you don't really, okay, here and there, but you don't really hear much of wholesalers or appearing in the criminal court for selling expired goods, or wholesalers actually being named and shamed by government agencies. Yes, maybe here and there, but it's maybe 3 or so news stories, but every time it's the spaza shop owner. Okay, 3 years back or 4 years back, we knew it was an issue of selling expired goods, but now all of a sudden we're hearing of people dying, sadly, from food poisoning, which is actually insecticide used for rats. So I think it's a very one-sided issue that is that has the danger of sending a false narrative that actually sees all spaza shop owners as culprits behind children dying from poisoning. Yes.
Yeah. And as we speak, actually, around this conversation, the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, is addressing his final address to the NCOP plenary, and he's talking around exactly that. And I see part of the straps coming out from the news outlets is that he has said that we mustn't only focus on spaza shops, but also on big retailers. And I guess that conversation should just really be on the value chain of production and manufacturing in the food industry. Let's go to WhatsApp, 06141041047.
Good afternoon, Bridget. Hope you're well. You're having this discussion about spaza shops and everything like that. But it's funny, we live in a world of two stories, because some people actually say that the township economy, like ShopRite and Pick and Pay and everything, must source their products from home enterprises and SMMEs, and their vegetables from small-scale farmers and things like that. And then you have the spaza shops, which do source their products from certain home enterprises and things like that, unnamed brands and what have you. But sometimes the spaza shops don't know that those products are actually contaminated or what's been used in it. But they do buy it from those industries, and then children die. So we have this conflicting story. The one demands that the big enterprises buy from the home enterprises, and the other one shooting the spaza shops down because they buy from those home enterprises. Mark from Cape Town.
Thank you, Mark. And I think we'll wrap it there, just looking at the time today. Dr. Khutsi Mudimo Muhlokwa, thank you so much for the time. It's almost just a few shakes before 2:30. And of course, Andela is standing by with the headline news. And then we'll come back on the other side of this, and we'll jump to your voice notes. I see some of your voice notes coming in regarding this conversation. So we'll take Andela, we'll come back with a kids corner, and then we'll jump to your voice notes in that last half an hour of the show. So you can keep them coming on 061-410-4107.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, National Police Commissioner Fanny Masamula has visited the abandoned mine shaft in Sabi, Mpumalanga, to check on the progress of an operation to retrieve over 100 illegal miners underground. Members of the All African Alliance movement have successfully challenged their expulsion from the Umkhonto Sizwe party in the Western Cape High Court, and authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo are investigating an unknown disease with flu-like symptoms that killed 79 people in the southwest of the country. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. This program is brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Side by Side. Hello everyone and welcome to Side by Side. We know parenting can be a journey with lots of ups and downs, and we're here to support you every step of the way. On today's episode, we bring you helpful tips, expert advice, and lots of encouragement, because you're doing one of the most important jobs in the world. And it is brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa la Bantwana, and the SABC Education. Today, we're talking about something so important: keeping a clean and healthy environment for you and your baby. On our drama episode yesterday, Nespiliswa shared some fantastic tips on hygiene. And now we're excited to welcome our guest, Ms. Makoloi Nakedi from Gauteng Province, the Assistant Director on Health Promotion. Ms. Nakedi, thank you so much for joining us today. What does personal hygiene mean for children?
Thank you very much, Ms. P, and thank you for having me on the show. If I may explain it to you in a simple term, and the listeners out there, is that children rely on their parents to keep them clean and safe, but as kids get older, they learn how to manage their own hygiene. Having good hygiene involves more than just washing your hands, but teaching kids about good personal hygiene helps set them up with healthy habits throughout their lives. Your child needs to keep clean to maintain healthy and to feel good about themselves. Good personal hygiene will help them keep germ-free and less likely to get sick. The basic of good personal hygiene for children are washing their hands, covering their mouth when they cough, having regular bath or showers, brushing and flossing their teeth. You have to help your child learn and practice good personal hygiene habits. For toddlers and small children, washing hands is very, very important. Most germs are spread through hand contact. Regularly washing hands and preventing your child and others from getting sick. Encourage and help your child to wash their hands with soap and water for 20 seconds. When their hands look dirty, before eating, after touching any body fluids like blood, urine, we normally say wee, or vomit if they get sick, after touching animals, children like cats and dogs, so it includes that, after blowing their nose, sneezing or coughing, after going to the toilet.
Why is it important for parents to uphold good hygiene practices at home, and mainly for the well-being of their babies?
Good. Maintaining good hygiene at home, it is very crucial, Mrs. P, because it helps prevent the spread of infection and illness. Babies have developing immune system, making more vulnerable to germs and bacteria. And by practicing good hygiene, parents can protect their babies from common illness like flu, colds, and gastrointestinal infection. Simple practices such as washing hands before handling the baby, sterilizing feeding bottles, and keeping the living environment clean and significantly can reduce the illness and promote overall health and well-being for both parents and babies.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Nakedi. In closing, what key hygiene practices should parents implement at home to promote their baby's health?
Yeah, some essential hygiene practices can include washing hands thoroughly with soap and water before handling the baby, especially after using the bathroom, changing diapers, or even handling pests. Keeping the baby's living environment clean by regularly disinfecting surfaces, toys, and frequently touched areas. areas, sterilizing the feeding bottles, the pacifiers, and other items that can go into the baby's mouth, bathing the baby regularly and ensuring that their clothes and bedding are very clean, properly disposing their diapers and cleaning the diaper changing area after each use, encouraging good hygiene practices among other family members to create a safe and healthy environment for the baby can be very essential practices that can be used.
What an insightful conversation. I hope you learned something new. Before we end today's episode, I've got some great news. So, Side by Side wants to thank you for tuning into our program by giving away 1,000 Rand. To stand a chance of winning, leave your name and number on our social media pages under the Side by Side post on Facebook, Instagram, and X using the handle @SAFM Radio. You will be called and asked one easy question. If you get it correct, you get yourself 1,000 Rand. For more information about the competition and the competition rules, just visit our social media platforms. That's SAFM Radio on Instagram, Facebook, and X. Today's lucky listener is Vuyokazi Chandu. Let's give her a call.
Hello.
Hi, Vuyokazi. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. You're speaking to Miss P from SAFM. I believe that you've been listening to Side by Side ever since it started on SAFM. So I've got a question for you. And if you get it right, you're getting yourself 1,000 Rand.
Okay. What's the question?
Okay, let's start. What are some of the ways that a toddler can get worms in their intestines?
They can maybe cut it from someone else, maybe an adult with worms carrying or maybe kissing the child, and then the baby can catch the disease.
Okay.
So they mostly catch it from someone else. And the other one, when a child is eating unclean food or also drink unclean water, they can also get worms that way.
Vuyokazi, I've got some great news for you. You've just won yourself 1,000 Rand.
Oh, Thank you so much, Miss P.
Please continue to listen to Side by Side. Thank you so much, Vuyokazi. Have yourself a lovely day.
Thank you, you too.
Now that was our lucky listener, Vuyokazi Chandu. Keep listening to Side by Side, and who knows, you might be our next lucky winner. Thank you for listening to Side by Side, the show that supports you to give your child the best possible start in life. Brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa Labantwana, and the SABC Education. Join the conversation with other caregivers on our Facebook page at Side by Side SA and look out for more great content. Join us again, same time next week when we'll be talking about identifying language and hearing developmental delays.
Side by Side.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Mamelodi Sundowns ladies take on University of the Western Cape in the final match of the Hollywood Bet Super League on Sunday the 8th of December 2024 at 3 p.m. at the Lucas Moripe Stadium. Come early, dress to support the top women's teams and the crowning of champions. You stand a chance to win prizes. Gates open at 12 p.m. and tickets are free. If you can't make it to the Lucas Moripe Stadium, catch the game live on SABC 1 at 3 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus. For more details, visit safa.net and at Hollywood Bets SL on X.
Get ready to win big this holiday season with SAFM. Text Christmas to 41391 to stand a chance to win one of 12 amazing mystery prizes. SMS lines open on the 29th of November and close on the 24th of December 2024. Winners will be announced between the 26th and the 31st of December. Each SMS costs R1.50, so hurry up and send your entries now. Terms and conditions apply. Get into the festive spirit and win big with SAFM this Christmas.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends, you need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tuned in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
Alrighty, let's see. All right, we're going to get into a conversation shortly around the sort of cheap gamble with a high price, looking at the true cost of Africa's counterfeit electrical goods trade. But as we get our guests on the line, maybe let's go to WhatsApp and rewind back on some of your sentiment on our previous conversations.
Hello, Bridget. I think it's a bit difficult, the comparisons with the neighboring countries, because their legal framework may be totally different. The only thing that was same or similar in terms of legal framework was the COVID, which was being governed by the WHO rules. But otherwise, the rules of the different or laws of the different countries are different. And also the way it is reported is different. Maybe here in South Africa, the reporting and the framework, the democratic and free press that you have allows all these things to come out, but not in the neighboring countries or not in some of them.
Hello, SAFM. I'm very happy that this conversation now is taking another turn because, like your presenter said, or the guest, there's a true bias on the issue of spaza shops and expired products. From my experience, I've been to ShopRite and saw on the shelf expired products and called the attendant, say, this thing is expired. And sometimes they put these things as things that they are on sales, but they are expiring the next day. And what if the people consume it? So the spaza shops owners, these guys, foreigners, came here and go to the big supermarket, the big jumbo market, and buy products from there. They do not manufacture. And therefore, the conversation focusing on spaza shop owners being the corporate should change. Really should change. We should go through the value chain of it and really get to the crux of the matter. Thank you, Mike in Rebecca.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
You know, Mike, I've been saying since this issue came to the fore, particularly for the bulk part of the year, that we can't be singular-minded when we're trying to find the problem, when we're trying to isolate the root cause of a problem. And there could be a lot of variables in the value chain of the issue, and we need to look at the entire value chain. I think on a positive, though, on the back of recent investigations, it seems as though now the net has been cast a little bit wider, and all the necessary authorities and folks are now starting to look at the value chain holistically. And eliminate everything element by element by element. Let's hope, at the very least, that is the strategy. Eliminate everything element by element by element, so that we're not blinded to what could potentially be the problem or where the problem could potentially lie. Andrew Dixon, now from CBI Electric, is joining us, and we are looking at another counterfeit. This time, counterfeit electrical goods that make up 40 to 80% of the South African and broader African markets, posing a serious threat to those markets. Let's have a look at, where are we in as far as this is concerned? How are you doing this afternoon, Dr. Andrew?
Good afternoon, Bridget. Well, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, 40 to 80% of the South African and broader African market constitutes counterfeit electrical goods. Now, that's a whole different problem.
It is a different problem, equally as challenging and equally as dangerous. So it's a case of how do we approach this, how do we inform the consumer where to go, how to look at it, and effectively keep themselves safe in an environment which, in fact, not many people are well versed.
And let's talk about that, because obviously it means that there is a market, right? And when we just look at the cost of living on the continent and even right here, within South African borders, I can almost understand why people would go look for something a little bit cheaper, a little bit more affordable, without really thinking about what the consequences might be.
Exactly. And I get it. The purse strings are tight. The disposable income that people have isn't there. The funny thing is, though, when you look at the risks associated, because it's not commonplace, and again, you need a dramatic event to occur before you will take this seriously as a consumer. You will tend to spend your money on what you deem to be important, and something as simple as an insurance policy is not somewhere where you spend your money, because you don't see the value right now. Problem is, when the accident occurs, then suddenly you're having to spend a lot of time and effort and money correcting what has happened. And of course, the extreme of that could be the loss of life, in which case there's no money or time that will buy that back. And this is the unfortunate nature of the short-term view on immediate costs now versus what I'm actually paying for and the value that it's bringing to my life. And these things are very difficult, because on the one side, you say, I've got to eat. But on the other side, because of our abundant use of technology, we have to have power.
Yeah.
And those two, unfortunately, are both necessities in all of our lives. And therefore, we've got to treat them, A, with respect, and B, with sort of understanding why I'm choosing to do what I'm doing. And so again, if we look at electrical goods that are coming into the market, there are two avenues which these are coming in for. One is people literally saying there's a value already there, i.e. there's a brand that's there in the market that is, I can take a percentage of their business away and I can make some money. So that's the individual. And then on the other side of that is it's the people looking for a quick fix that are pushing stuff into the market for once off. And I'm going to make a little bit of money off this, and then I'm going to go on selling. So today I'm selling electrical goods, tomorrow I'm selling clothing, the next day I'm selling tables. And these guys are in it for the short term, and therefore the consequential effect on the consumer is never felt by them, so they don't care, actually.
Yeah.
And those are the people that, unfortunately, the consumer who's looking for that cost saving is going to, because they see the deal, but they don't know the end consequence of what may happen.
To what extent, Dr. Andrew, to what extent are counterfeit electronic goods actually infiltrating the South African market?
So the quantum varies depending on the nature of the good. So I've spent about 10 years fighting counterfeit goods of my own company's manufacturing product. We've prosecuted, we've spoken to authorities, but it doesn't stop, because today you tie someone up in court, the next day someone else is going to another Chinese firm to get something else made. And yes, very often it's China. It's not solely China which are sending product through, but China are very good at you sending them something and then making a copy and sending it back to you. And whether it be a copy or a actual counterfeit, both are getting into our market. And the consumer is unaware of these things.
How do we begin to educate ourselves? Because I must admit, I've never thought about it from an electronics perspective. And as we're having this conversation, I'm thinking, well, if I'm looking for an iron, for instance, and it happens to carry the name of a brand that I'm familiar with, if I get it at a reputable retailer for X amount, $200, and then somebody sends me, somewhere else, China Mall or wherever, and I get it for $150, I'm not thinking that it's counterfeit. I'm just thinking that, for some reason they have it a little bit cheaper. So what do we then look out for so that we know the difference?
Okay, so I'm going to say the first thing on exactly your example is a little bit cheap is okay. So, if it's 100 Rand difference on something which is, say, 500 Rand, you're probably maybe getting a deal. You may be getting a counterfeit, but you may be getting a deal. It's when things are drastically reduced. So a typical product that is maybe 500 Rand in the shops, and you're suddenly buying it for 150 or 200 Rand, you've got to be asking the questions. No Black Friday deal is going to be ever that good. And particularly something as commoditized as electrical products. So remember, this is an item which goes through a huge manufacturing process, a huge certification process, ensuring compliance to the standards. But it's a small component in the bigger. And because of that, you have to sell a lot of them to make any money, which means if you're able to bring it in at a remarkably reduced rate, of course, the consumer will come flocking to you. But you're not actually making very much money on it, which means you've got to sell a lot of these goods, which means you're going to make it as cheap as possible to get as many people to buy. And that's the draw card for it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that obviously it's the right product. So the price is obviously a very big indicator. Now, on the other side of it is then you go to reputable dealers. So you need to look at reputable distribution networks. We work very closely with our distribution network. We've spent a lot of time informing customers around things to look for or to be aware that these products may exist in the marketplace. And at the same time, if you're going to the guy who's selling out of his bakkie, is he actually going to be legitimate? Is he going to be following due process? Everywhere else, I as a manufacturer have to provide detailed documentation around things like a letter of authority, which comes from our national regulator. We have to prove certification, and that's usually test reports. So these things will go to the reputable distributors, who will then house them because they are part of the distribution chain. They are ultimately responsible for knowing that the product meets the requirements of the specifications, and then on selling it in accordance with that, which then gets installed by a registered electrician, who will then issue you with a COC. Now, if any one of those elements in the chain is broken, then you've got to question, is this a reliable, reputable, or correct product for the application?
Okay, no, I get that, and let's talk about the cost to consumer for getting a product that ultimately seems like it's a cheap product, but down the line it may come in at a rather high cost by way of safety and damage, etc.
All right, so there are two elements here, or two main elements. One is the actual electrical performance. So when you plug a plug into a wall socket, there is a requirement as to how that connection works and the resistance attached to that. And resistance relates to heat. And this is the problem that the consumer doesn't understand, is that as that sits and it gets hot because you're drawing a load, whether it's connected to a fridge, a home entertainment system, whatever it may be, over time that plug connection will start to get warm. Now, if left unchecked, it will continue to get warm. Now, this is the second element, is the environmental element, is around the materials used, the plastics. So the regulation says the plastics have to self-extinguish if a fire occurs or if I've got an ignition point. Now, the cheap products, very often those plastics are cheap because that's how I make the product cheaper. And those plastics don't necessarily meet those requirements. So when they start to heat, they will warp, and then eventually, if that heat is or continues to exist in that point, that plastic will eventually ignite. And that will obviously start a fire, which is, unless you're at the point when it starts, it will result in damage, and it could be a little bit of damage or it could be significant damage. I've seen both.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is the untold cost that will be associated with buying the cheap product today.
All right, so lots to consider, in fact. As we wrap it up, what are the steps then that the government or respective industries, and I don't know, the respective bodies that, govern the electronics industry, what are some of the steps perhaps that need to then be implemented or reworked in order to reduce the prevalence of counterfeit goods?
So the rules and regulations are set up. The standard bodies are there. The test authorities are there. The processes are there. Are they followed always to the letter of the law? That is one of the problems. And there are a number of consumer protection groups which spend a lot of time engaging with authorities to make sure that they are actually policing the environment correctly and sufficiently. So those are some of the sort of major high-level steps. You know, your likes of Safe House and Alta, any of those groups are engaging with the government a lot. Industry is engaging in the likes of the Department of Trade and Industry to ensure that, the economic hubs in South Africa are maintained, i.e. the businesses continue to operate, because obviously if you've got competitors coming in at drastically reduced prices that you can't compete against, as an industry, you will eventually fold. And of course, that is not something we as a country and economy can really afford. So it's to make sure that those industries are protected, but then to also make sure that we're adhering to the rules and regulations to make sure that the products going into the market are fit and suitable for the application.
Dr. Andrew Dixon, we appreciate the time, and he's from CBI Electric, low voltage, and that is where we leave it for today. Ashraf is standing by with his team, and they're going to walk you through the rest of the afternoon on the National Pulse. From myself and my team, thank you so much for choosing to be in conversation with us, and we get to do it again tomorrow for the final day of the week. Inshallah, God willing, we'll see you then.